All right, for today's video review, we're going to be taking a look at Transformers Generations Legacy Evolution Voyager class Leo Prime, or as a lot of people know him, Lio Convoy. Because, Leo Prime is really just kind of the Americanized name of the character Lio Convoy from Beast Wars the Second, who is a Japanese original character. And I tend to prefer Lio Convoy as his name. But yeah, no, he's a pretty good figure overall. I do really enjoy him. Already kind of knocking it out of the park with these Legacy Evolution figures. At least the Voyagers so far have been real bangers so far. But yeah, he looks pretty good in his lion mode. I do like the face. A lot of people have kind of complained that the face looks a little bit derpy. I don't really see it. I think it looks just kind of like a regular lion. Like, I think it looks pretty good. Maybe it could have been nice if the teeth were picked out in some sort of other paint. I mean, I guess the teeth would be white, so it kind of fits, but it does feel a little weird to have them the same color as the rest of the skin. One thing about the head here, I do kind of wish that they had picked out the ears in paint as well, because, it looks fine more or less, but really the ears should be white, kind of peeking out of the mane. But otherwise, I think it looks pretty good, at least in the front half. Now, in the back half, I think things get a little bit shakier. His tail is a little bit small, which I get because of how it folds up for transformation. And then the back legs just kind of jut out really awkwardly. And they have this problem where they're kind of like separated here at the knee and just make it look like it sticks weirdly back. Now, I was looking at this and I was trying to figure out why they couldn't compress more. And if you look at this red piece here, it actually does have a little bit of like a ledge, a stop to run into that white piece on the kind of like inside of the leg there. And that actually stops it at a certain point. And I'm not totally sure why, because it sort of feels like it should compress more than that. And to do an experiment on this, just to see if it would look better, on the other side, I actually just shaved that piece down just a little bit, just enough that you could do this. And I think that just improves the look a whole lot. Like, yeah, his back legs are still a little bit chunky, but you have this problem where, like, in the stock configuration, they just stick really weirdly back. And then if you want to bring them more forward, then they kind of sit too far, like they point too far down towards the ground, which makes the front legs too short. So then he kind of leans forward. So you kind of have to like leave them weirdly back for that to work. Whereas this gives you that little extra bit of height that I think, ignoring the other leg that I haven't done that to yet, I think that just looks a lot more natural. Like, still not perfect. I think his legs are still a little bit chunkier than they ought to be, but much better than this, honestly. So, it wasn't too difficult of a thing to do. It's not like you have to completely remove that ledge, just remove it enough that it can get past that little piece inside the thigh piece here. And I think that helps a lot. But otherwise, even without doing that mod, I think that the lion mode is still probably, honestly, the best looking lion mode of the of the Lio Convoy figures that we've gotten previously. Like, the original Lio Convoy is a good looking figure. It's just, it looks like it's kind of aged a bit, and I also think it's too big. And then there was like the Robot Heroes one, which was kind of the underscaled version of that, which is too small. And then there's like the Masterpiece, and like, hot take, but I don't think any of the the Beast modes for any of the Beast Masterpiece figures look really good. Like, they're all like really panely and weird looking, and I prefer this vibe myself, and it's much more in scale with other figures and a lot cheaper. So I'm glad we're finally getting a sort of nice, affordable Lio Convoy figure. But yeah, I like the lion mode overall. I just think that little edit that I made makes it even better. It does come with a few weapons here, basically just 4 little, I guess, kind of pistol things. And what you can do with these is he does have the sort of the option to, you flip out 2 of these pieces on the main here. I mean, this is all one piece. And then you flip out these pieces here, which are tabbed in, and you flip them around like that, basically to replicate the sort of like main weapon of the original toy. Instead of having those weapons actually worked into it, you basically then plug these in there. So you can plug the shorter ones up top here onto the main, just like that. And then these longer, thinner ones have like a tab that kind of fits into the long section of the hexagon there. So you really can't like rotate these within there. So they stay pretty much straight forward. And, you can do that. This is the thing that, Lio Convoys have always had. And I think it looks dumb, but I appreciate that they're trying to replicate a gimmick of the original toy. And then in terms of storing these guns, these two can just stay right where they are. There's plenty of room for them to just flip back in the main here. And then with these, you've got a couple options because these peg holes are used to actually tab into those sections there, so they can't stay attached there, and there's really just no room for them. You could, if you wanted to, plug them into the side of the main here like that, which because they're the same color, mostly blend into place, though you can still see them there. And honestly, if that were the only way to store them, that wouldn't be the end of the world. I think it looks a little bit better without them there, but it's an option. The other place to store them, I'm going to have to show off a little bit later because you sort of have to just plug them into they sit inside of this section basically, but you really can't get at this section unless you start the transformation. And for reasons I'll explain, I'll just show that off as we go along. But the one thing to be said about that is if you store them in there, they can store inside the lion mode completely unobtrusively, not at all visible in lion mode. But if you want to do that weapon mode, which truthfully I usually don't, you really can't access them without going partway through the transformation, which is a little annoying if you're wanting to just do the weapon mode without starting the transformation. But like I said, I don't really care for the weapon mode, so it doesn't really bother me, but worth mentioning. But for now, we'll just put these off to the side, and then I'll show you where they store as we go along. In terms of size comparisons, just very standard one. Here he is with Kingdom Sideswipe in his robot mode, so you can see how the lion scales with an average size deluxe. For some more cats, here he is with Cheetor and Tigatron, just so you can see how he stacks up with them. I think that works pretty well. He's a bit bigger than both of them, as a lion should be to a cheetah or a tiger. I think they look pretty good together. I don't have many other characters of Beast Wars the Second, but a lot of those characters were just kind of reuses of previous toys that existed in the Beast Wars toy line. So here he is with Clawjaw, who is more or less the exact same as Scuba from Beast Wars the Second. So for whatever that's worth, that's really the only one that I have, because I don't have Snarl to be Tasmania Kid. I don't have Baboom to be Apache, and I do have what's his name? The frog, Slapper. No, Slapper is the RID one, Spitter, but the character in the show is green, whereas the Spitter toy is blue, so it doesn't really work out, but that's okay. I mostly put him with my Beast Wars Neo Maximals anyway, and here he is with the other two big Maximal leaders with Optimus Primal and Big Convoy, and I think the three of them look really nice together. Just three completely different animals that all have kind of like a leaderly presence, and I think it works pretty well. But yeah, to get onto transformation, the first bit of the transformation is really the biggest pain throughout the whole thing, and maybe it'll loosen up over time, but you want to get this middle panel untabbed from this back panel, and the tab connection is really tight in there, and there's just not a great place to grab it. So what I usually do is I just unpeg the back panel here, just kind of separate it like that, and then just grab this. Oop, the tail's coming out there, that's new. And then just grab this from both sides there and kind of, well, actually, wait a minute, articulation. Yeah, we gotta do that. Nothing at the head. The jaw can open and close, which is nice. This main piece can kind of fold up and down. The front paws, the actual thigh piece is tabbed in place, but kind of down here where the knee ought to be. He does have a forward and back knee, though I don't find that's overly useful in that many poses. And then there's also a swivel there for transformation. And then the back legs here will end up being the robot mode legs. So he's got I think it's a universal joint at the hip there, so it can swivel back and forth and then up and down like that. It's got a swivel right there, a swivel down here as well, though it's kind of cut at an angle for how it unfolds for transformation. Has an ankle tilt, which is nice. And then, this double jointed knee, which, I don't think, if you unfold it more, I don't think it looks any better. It's really just meant to kind of be up like this, or really it's meant to be up like this, but and then the tail can kind of wiggle up and down. But yeah, so for transformation, like I said, you just want to untab this section, which honestly, even in and of itself can be kind of a pain sometimes. There we go. And then you just want to grab this section and kind of just wiggle it back and forth to untab it, because it's really the tab connection right here. And like I said, there's not a great place to grab it because you can get your fingernail under there, but this is actually a fairly thin piece of plastic. So even though it feels fairly sturdy, it kind of hurts to actually get your fingernail under there. So like once you get it a little bit more out, then you can kind of wiggle it and then untab it like that. And thankfully it wasn't too bad that time, though that has been a huge pain in the past. And then you want to take this section and fold it up like that, fold this section up, and then take the tail, which kind of at this angle here folds into the butt piece here. And then this section right here, you want to untab like that. And then these two slots right there are where these can store. And they can stay there throughout the entire transformation. That's also where they can store in robot mode. And, you know, completely unobtrusive in both modes, just hiding in there, which is, you know, they're kind of small, kind of like little weapons, but the benefit of that is that they actually, you know, have a pretty clean place to go and can stay fairly out of the way. But yeah, you just want to leave that up there for now. For the legs, you want to unfold them at the knees here so they sit like this. So it has this kind of weird arc, and then take the actual foot and rotate it around like that to straighten out the leg, and then rotate the whole thing around at the thigh swivel there, and then flip out the heel piece just like that, and then do that on both sides here. And then you want to take these sections here, which like including this main piece here. Let me just adjust the camera here. Then you want to take these sections here with the bits of the main and this whole section here, and you want to separate them like this. It'll kind of, you know, it kind of latches together. It's sort of crisscross over here. You want to bring these out to the side, and then you want to take the hand pieces in here from the arms and just fold them up and tab them in like that. The actual lion legs, they kind of tab in this way, so you just want to undo that and kind of bring this out and back just like that. Then you want to take this whole sort of belly section of the lion, bring it down, flip out the robot mode head, and then bring it back till it tabs into place, and then rotate this whole section around and then bring it back where it was. And then from there, you can bring down these panels, and these tabs that were used to plug into the inside of the thighs here will actually plug into the side of the body just like that. Then you take these two panels here, and then you sort of interlock them the other way, and you fold them in like that to become the chest. Rotate them around at the biceps here. And then for the lion legs, they do just kind of, you know, in typical Lio convoy fashion, they do kind of just end up hanging off the back of his arms. You rotate this section around and then rotate it up like that, so that it kind of sits in like that. It's not the most elegant thing, but honestly, it doesn't get in the way as often as you'd expect it to, since there's just a big chunk hanging back here. But, you know, a lot of people don't like that, but it doesn't bother me so much because that's usually the case with Lio convoy figures. And then you want to bring his arms forward like that, just so you have clearance for this. And then you want to take this whole section with the lion head and the lion back here, and then rotate it up like this. Oops, knocking stuff over. And then this armature here will kind of link over the armature that the back piece is on. Then the back, you can kind of just bring down. It doesn't tab in or anything. It kind of just sits there. And then this shoulder pad, you bring up like that. And then this one you bring up, and it's actually on a bit of a slider here, so it compresses a little bit to sit just a little bit neater in on his shoulders there. And there you have Lio Prime, or Lio Convoy, in his robot mode. And yeah, I think he looks pretty good. It's definitely a much more, I would say, proportional look than the original Lio Prime, or I guess the original was just straight up Lio Convoy. Than the original Lio Convoy, who was, you know, kind of like a lot bigger. He had like gimmicks with the whole main piece, so this whole section was like a lot bigger. I think he just looks a lot nicer than that original one, as he should, since he's a new toy. But yeah, nice head sculpt there, very Optimus Prime-y, obviously. In terms of articulation, the head is on it's on a ball joint. You don't get a ton of wiggle back and forth, but you can rotate it, obviously. The shoulders are obviously a little bit hindered by the big shoulder pads, but they can, you know, the shoulder pads can kind of, well, this one at least can hinge up and down like that and out to the side like that, so you can kind of get them out of the way in most poses, whereas this one you can at least hinge back like that, but the main pieces do kind of bump into the back piece here, so it's not quite as much versatility. But yeah, you can rotate the shoulders in and out like that, and then around, you know, it's just getting around these pieces here. This one's a little bit more hindered just because there's just less mobility in this particular shoulder pad. But then he also has a bicep swivel, a
about a 90-degree bend at the elbow there, and then the only thing the wrists can do is bend in like that, which doesn't look good at all. And then these are on ball joints, so you can kind of just get them as much out of the way as you can. He's got a solid waist cut here. Like I said, universal joints at the hips there, then go forward and back and out to the side. A thigh swivel from Transformation, that double jointed knee, which really on this side, like this joint is pretty much locked in place how it is. I mean, you can hinge it forward, but that's only kind of breaking his leg. It's mostly supposed to stay like that. So you're only really using the one hinge joint for the knee, which gets about 90, which I feel like is enough. And then he has ankle tilt here like he did in Lion mode. So, decent articulation. Obviously, the shoulder pads hinder things a little bit, but that was always kind of going to be the case with this design. But yeah, no, pretty good. In terms of the weapons, obviously they just stayed exactly where they were for storage in Lion mode, but you can obviously take those out and then do similar things with them as before. You can still do the, these pieces were the other bits that were for part of the main gimmick, so you can't plug these into those, but you could plug these onto these separate tabs here, or these separate slots here, so you can still kind of do the shoulder thing. Again, I don't really know why you would, but you can. But obviously you can have him hold these or do separate things with them. There's a few different options here. He doesn't really hold these ones super well, just because these are like tabs that don't really fit into his fist holes super cleanly. So I find that if you want him to actually hold any weapons, the shorter ones are the way to go. That being said, there are slots on the shorter ones, so you can combine them if you want. Either 2 and 2, or can you? Gosh, maybe those don't actually even fit. I feel like they should. Hold on. I just took for granted that these slots could fit these weapons, but actually no, these don't really fit in here. So maybe they were supposed to, but the tolerances just don't really work out, where these can't really peg in there, which I don't care that much, but as a design feature they probably ought to have. But what you can do is flip these out and tab them in like this, like they were for the weaponized Lion mode, and that looks okay. You can do that on both sides. I'm not going to do it for the other one, but the other thing you can do is you can flip down the lion paws here and then flip out these little claw bits and either have it like that or like that, whichever you prefer. And that's enough for like weapons. I don't think any of them look super fantastic, but they're fairly accurate to how the weapons mode was on the original Lio Convoy. I'm just going to put these back to the side for now because I don't feel like putting them back in their storage spots. But so you've got some options there. And then additionally, the other thing that you can do is this one part on the chest panel here can open up. You just have to get a fingernail in there, which can be kind of tricky sometimes. And he's got his little energy matrix in there, not removable or anything like that, but it does have a port for a blast effect, so you could plug a blast effect in there. And so that's kind of enough in terms of the weapons. He's got some options there. Like I said, I don't think any of them are that fantastic, but they're mostly accurate to how they originally were. In terms of comparisons, here he is again with Kingdom Sideswipe for that standard size deluxe comparison. Here he is again with Cheetor and Tigatron for some more cat bots. You can see he's a little bit shorter than Tigatron at the head, which, I think mostly that's because Tigatron is just a little bit bigger than he ought to be, but they look good together. Here he is again with Clawjaw or Scuba if you want him to be, so you can see what they look like together. And then last but not least, here he is again with Optimus Primal and Big Convoy, just so you can see the 3 leaders, and I think they look really, really nice together. That's definitely a cool display option. But yeah, no, I'd say he's a pretty solid figure overall. One thing that it's not really showing up here, but you can definitely see it in certain lighting, is that the plastic on the arms is kind of thin. It has this big cavity here, which usually I don't really care about hollow sections, but let me see if I can get the light on this in just the right way, because sometimes what you can see is that it actually like bleeds through a little bit, and you can kind of see that when you're looking at it. You can see it there a little bit. Usually, in regular lighting, it shows up a bit more. There you go. Yeah, you can kind of see it, and that's kind of a bummer. I will say it is fairly fixable, because though the arms, like the hands, fold up like this for transformation, the armature piece doesn't actually sink into that section all that much. So you probably could get some sort of filler or, like 3D printed thing to like just get the very inside bit there just to thicken up that place there just so the light couldn't get through. It would still have the little gap on the back probably because it needs a little bit of it to accommodate the hand piece, but at least it would cause or it would solve the light bleeding problem. So something worth mentioning. Again, not the end of the world, seems pretty fixable, but I know that a lot of people have a problem with like hollow sections and thin plastic, so it is worth mentioning. But yeah, no, that's pretty much all there is to him. I think he's a really solid figure overall. I'd say I still like Tarn a little bit more than him, but they're both really solid figures. But yeah, if you enjoy my videos, make sure to leave a like and consider subscribing. I do reviews every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday. And without further ado, here we have Transformers Generations Legacy Evolution Leo Prime, or Lio Convoy.